And here we go.
All right. Hi, good morning. So I got the section on teaching unsupported messages and teaching about collaboration. These kind of go a little bit hand in hand. So if you look on your textbook on page 111, it has this nice little list about all of the different types of unsupported messages. And then you have things like global labels, you're a liar, sarcasm, no, you didn't miss anything in class, we just sat here waiting, and then dragging up the past. I should have known not to trust you after you didn't pay me back. Negative comparisons, Jade graduated with no debt, why can't you? Judgmental responses, like judgmental you responses, I'm sorry about that. You're never going to be able to hold down a job, and threats. If you don't stop texting your ex, you're going to regret it. So I kind of group these into like three little groups that help me very much identify these a lot more easily. The first three, thankfully, are all together. Global liars, sarcasm, and dragging up the past. I put them together as they're like criticizing some aspect of you, and then you don't really have any way to like change that. Like they say things like, you're a liar. Well, you can take that information, but what are you going to do with it? You can't really like do anything to change their mind, so it's not going to help you, so it's unsupportive. Sarcasm, no, you didn't miss anything. Well, now they're kind of like implying why would you ask that question? That's a stupid question, which again goes back to the global labels. And then dragging up the past is everything's done and gone and theoretically resolved, but they're still bringing up, which is, again, a way that is kind of like implying you're unredeemable about something, which is not going to help you. The second group, negative comparisons and judgmental you responses, is also kind of a way to like drag you down. And it kind of ties back into something that we learned in Module 1 with it leads to like the looking glass self and the self-fulfilling prophecies, is that you would like kind of internalize it. Oh, Jade graduated with no debt, but I can't do that. And so you're not going to look for scholarship opportunities, and you're not going to get better, and it'll just repeat itself in a vicious cycle of you're not doing very well. And then threats. It's really easy. If you don't stop texting your ex, you're going to regret it. It's a threat. It's kind of leading into coercion a little bit, which is, again, not a good thing. So those are all very easy to identify if you kind of like think, will this help me, or is it just going to hurt me? And that leads into collaboration, because a way to collaborate very well is to avoid unsupportive messages, and that's where it leads into it.
Bingo, ding, 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 ding. Very important. So when you are approaching or you are ending or in the middle of, don't use these. Don't go there. Just don't go there. All right, very good.
Thank you. So I have a little note here that says if you feel upset about anything, talk about it, because that's going to lead into the conflict, whether it's like directly the problem or whether it's going to lead into how you react to the problem. Because we heard on the TED Talks, people react to emotions in different ways, particularly the one with the anger was talking about one scenario could lead to anger for you, but not for someone else, or it might depend on the circumstances. So if you're bringing in all of these unsupportive messages, it's just making things a lot harder than it really needs to be. So constructive criticism. I'm going to write this down. Constructive is the first word.
Don't put it back.
Oh, right, sorry. So constructive is the first word, and by that I mean it's important because in order to receive constructive criticism and get it, it needs to both tell you what you're doing wrong specifically and not just you're a horrible person, but I don't like when you do X because Y, and here's how you can change it, Z. So I had a problem with my sister. She's older than me, and she would always come into like whenever I had a group project or anything, she would come in and she would start giving me all sorts of suggestions like right off the bat. And I didn't like that because I wanted my grades to be reflective of what I would do. And I always had like ideas of what I wanted to do anyway, but she was doing things that were like completely Hana. And it's not what Emily would do for a project. And so I told her, and I told my parents, I don't like when she comes in here and starts giving me suggestions all the time, because it makes me feel like she thinks that I can't do it and she needs to step in and help me. And so I would appreciate it if she would back off a little bit and wait for me to approach her for when she gives me help. And so that was the XYZ. Here's what I don't like. Here's why I don't like it. here's what we can do about it. And so that leads into like the collaboration. That's kind of like the little bit of a watered down version of it. But if you have like a giant conflict, then there's a couple other things you need to do. In the textbook, it gives you on page 117, what is it? Do not view the conflict as a contest. Remain flexible. Distinguish the people from the problem. Identify areas of interest or common ground that you can work for to develop solutions. Ask questions to allow you to clarify and help you understand the perspective, and then listen carefully and provide verbal and nonverbal feedback. So the way I kind of deal with conflict is that I view it as a problem that needs to be solved. It's a math equation, or it's a little theoretical solution we have in class. That allows me to remove my emotions from the situation and approach it from basically a purely collaborative standpoint. And we can get the emotions out of the way by, again, constructive criticism and explaining this is what I don't like. And so that lets you think about things like a little bit more of a solution-oriented mindset, and it allows you to it allows you to basically focus on solving the problem instead of I'm upset. And another way you can do that is in the textbook, it says plan it in advance. So give the person, can we talk about this? And then sit down and talk about it. And so that, again, is another little key point where you want to do this where emotions are not running high. Because if you do it where emotions are not running high, that's where the unsupported messages slip in, and that's where more conflict is going to come in. So you do that. And then if there are parts where you see that you're wrong in this conflict, like if it's a conflict of you and your roommate are trying to use the bathroom at the same time, but it doesn't work, and then you realize, hey, I'm taking really long in the shower, you can apologize for that. And it'll also help clarify where you stand on the issue and what points you are willing to concede, what points are not actually part of the conflict, and what points are just being dragged in by whatever. And so that boils it again down to this is the conflict, these are the possible solutions, this is what we're going to do about it. All right, I think that was about everything anyway.
Yep.
So, thank you.
Excellent. Yay! All right, Alex, your turn. Lots of good advice there. Sounds like she's used this before, especially like in working with her sister. So that was a good scenario. All right, Alex, what have you got about culture?
So basically what I have was a bunch of different culture terms that apply to management styles for conflict. So essentially when we studied the 5 conflict management styles, there was some Western bias in that. And
You're fine.
but that's not the case around the world. So a really big important term to remember is face. So face is your projected self that you desire to put out to the world, what you want to show. And so like when you want to save face, you want to maintain your reputation, how people view you. And that's what we call face work. So face work is basically it's communicative strategies to project, maintain, or repair your face or someone else's. And that goes along with challenging someone else's face as well. That is also considered face work. Another big important term to remember for face work is face negotiation theory, where people across cultures negotiate face through communication styles. So essentially these couple pages were essentially talking about how different cultural aspects affect how we engage in face work, and especially through conflict. And it emphasizes self-face and other face. So there are more individualistic cultures which emphasize your individual identity, like the US and most of Europe, that really encourage competition and self-reliance. But that is not the case for the entire world, as in a lot of Eastern cultures, as well as some South American like Peru. You have more collectivistic cultures, which value your group identity over your individual.
you want to go into control, you can.
I can go for that real quick.
Okay.
So your self-control is basically the variety of how you view yourself as an individual within that collectivistic culture. How much are you seen of as an individual within the group? And on the opposite side of that, you have in self-control, which is no, I'm sorry, yeah, which is your your independent self-control, which is how you perceive yourself as an individual, versus self-control, which is your variety of how you're seen as a group.
Great job again. Excellent, excellent. Effective saving is very, very important whenever you are in any kind of a situation. It's listed here from a cultural perspective to talk about it specifically, such as the collectivist and the individualist societies, etc. But it's also important in everyday, all right? Because saving face means that you approach a conflict by being conscious of not ever embarrassing people. Don't call them out. Don't embarrass them. Don't throw them under the bus in front of others. And at the same time, you're trying to protect your own face so that you don't feel humiliated, you don't feel embarrassed. Because once you cross the line and those things happen, then everybody's going to start shutting down and you're not going to be able to have a good conversation. So that's really important, is to respect the other person as well as yourself, so that when you are discussing, and I like the way you're saying constructive criticism, that you are doing it in a way to help everybody still feel good about themselves, all right? So embarrassment and humiliation serves no purpose. All right, good job. All right, so that takes us to Mariel. Yay!
Okay, so I had conflict styles. So the first one I read about was criticism, and that's where you're evaluating another person's behavior or personality. And in most cases, it ends with an argument or resentment. It normally never ends in a good outcome. I personally need to work on not speaking my criticism, since it often leads to disagreement, and I'm not personally gaining anything from giving criticism, because even some comments that aren't meant as criticism can be perceived as such. The next style was demand.
Okay, these are triggers. They're not really styles. These are triggers or patterns. Okay.
Oh, okay. Pattern is demands, and this also commonly triggers conflict as it is seen as unfair or irrelevant. Tone of voice is important when you're dealing with this conflict, because it can change the way you say something and what it means. When demanding, use higher level of information, and when being demanded, stay calm and express your thoughts with the other person. The next pattern is cumulative annoyance, and that's building frustration or anger that occurs over time, and it eventually also results in conflict. This can happen from keeping quiet over an interaction until it eventually builds up and annoys you. A good strategy is to monitor your level of annoyance and address your problem so it doesn't build up in the future.
Okay, hold on right there. This is for all of you or any of you who are accommodators or no accommodators. This is what happens, is that oftentimes, and also at times the turtles, okay, if they never deal with something. All right, so it just accumulates. It just keeps building up. It's like a pressure cooker, and you just sweep it under the rug, or you just ignore it, or you say, yeah, you can have your way, you can have your way, until all of a sudden the pressure cooker explodes, and you explode, and it gets ugly, and then it's not going to be productive. Okay, so good.
The next pattern is rejection, and that can lead to a feeling of ignoring or invalidating the other person. when somebody feels rejected, they often respond with anger. So it's best to take a look at the whole situation and see if there's other reasons that they could be rejecting your um, conversation or whatever the situation was. The next one was validation, and it could be as simple as showing somebody you're listening and making contact and giving verbal cues. This can de-escalate a conflict when you're communicating out of respect for listening of the other person's opinions. And that was the last one. So you can't expect everyone to react the same way, but with managing the styles of conflict, you can work out issues and relationships in your life and find success in communicating more effectively.
Excellent, excellent, very good, very good. And what's interesting is that these are identified as triggers that will cause more conflict or exasperate the situation, or as in the case with validation, it will be a positive trigger that will move the conversation on so that you can get to where you want to be, which is to collaborate. All right, good job. Okay, Austin, so give us the steps.
All right, so creation is a process that happens basically every day, and it's basically us trying to influence or change certain things in a relationship. Like if someone doesn't do the dishes and you want them to do the dishes or something like that. But anyway, the first step in negotiation is the pre-negotiation. Can I erase this?
Yes. Those are clean erasers over there.
So the first step is the pre-negotiation. And this is basically like, it's almost like a setup for negotiating. You basically say, I think we should talk about this or something like that. And you basically just like give them a little preview of what it should be and like when or what you want to talk about, stuff like that. And this is the stage where you can basically decide that if you want to keep negotiating or if you want to just like let it go if you need to. But assuming you don't let it go, you move on to the second stage, which is the opening stage. This is basically like setting the tone for the interaction. Like, you could be like, we need to work on this, and like use some we language to like establish like a common ground between the two of you so that you can work on the problems at hand. It's basically just like, I guess, like I said, it's an opening, just like to establish some common ground.
It's a little bit of the small talk communication, small talk. It's to avoid just walking in and saying, I am so pissed at you.
Yeah.
All right, so it's going to give you a soft entry into what you're going to talk about.
Mhm.
Yep, good.
So the third stage step is exploration. This is basically the stage where y'all exchange information, what issues you might have with each other, what you want to change, what you want done from them, and what they want from you, stuff like that. An important step here is actually like hearing the other person, making sure that you yourself or what you want to say is heard as well. And the information you get here is key for the next stage, which is bargaining. At the bargaining stage, this is basically where You obviously bargain, you make proposals and concessions, and it's important to be like flexible with with how you want to negotiate, like be collaborative and like what's the word I'm looking for? Make sacrifices, I guess,
Mhm.
if you need to. The important part here is just to collaborate with the other person and work with them, and they work with you. So this is on to the next stage, which is settlement. This stage is basically where you basically summarize the proposals that you had, like I'm gonna get this, you're gonna do this, I'm gonna do this for you, blah blah blah. And then you basically summarize the proposals and settle on them and then carry them out.
And so you reach agreement.
Mhm.
Are we in agreement that we will do A, B, and C? Okay? And then another part of that stage is to, after time has passed, to do a follow-up. Okay?
Yeah.
Follow up and make sure, are we good? Are we still good? Is this working? Do we need to fix anything? That kind of thing. Okay?
Mhm.
Very good, very good. Yay! All right, Tariq. So how are you, what did you learn? And which scenario are you going to solve? Come on up and tell us how you're going to solve it.
Okay,
Come up?
yeah,
Okay. So you're going to do number one, your parents want you to work more hours and go to school, or are you going to do, you want to spend more time with your significant other? Come on up. Okay. Okay, perfect.
okay, so what I have learned from today's teaching about the peers is that each peer is not perfect. So there's always going to be some setbacks on depending where you can negotiate, whether you can show support, whether you can give out constructive criticism, and random periods to be exact. So I'm looking to resolve it. I'm looking forward to resolving scenario two, which is my daily problem. Um, you want to spend more time with a significant other, but they are busy. So either way, both of these scenarios are going to be connected with all of the peers that are shown on the board, including common unsupportive messages for the person that you wanted to make more time with. They're expecting better of you. They're expecting good results from out of you. They want to threaten you with consequences if they don't exceed their expectations, as well as tips for collaborating with the significant other. What what other times that you are available? What other expectations that you expect to meet? So this has been my daily problem because I do have some online friends that I spend time with them every day. Um, I I've been impatient with the responses, and that's something that you don't want. You don't want to be im- impatient. You got to give them time. If they're working at schoolwork, give them time because the last thing you want is for them falling behind. And yeah, and the culture terms, I think both of these both of these scenarios kind of connect with it, but not all the way because of the culture. Like I do have some that are from from UK, from North Texas, from here in the United States, or from Cuba, or something like that. So they are so based off of their cultures. That's something that you got to see in order to solve this scenario. And then the conflict patterns. That's something that I didn't acknowledge. The culture and the conflicts. That's something I didn't require because I I am biased with how things are working out. Like I've been used to it. I've been used to it for the past year that I've gotten attached to it. So you got to be careful because once you get attached to it, there is going to be some major setbacks that could lead to the ending of a friendship, the ending of a relationship, and so on and so forth, um, as and whatnot. And then the five-step skill. I appreciate the five-step skill because that's something that you need in a relationship, something you need in a friendship, something you need for mutualism. So that's what's been the been my major problem here, not following the five-step skill.
Okay.
So either way, my resolvement for scenario two is you got to give them time. You got to give them support. You got to set boundaries. You got to set up the schedule and whatnot to spend time with them, to spend time with their families, and to spend time with yourself. Got to make time for yourself because not making time for yourself can lead to different conflicts, and those conflicts will get harder as the time progresses. So this is the resolvement that I have for scenario two. You gotta do everyday life things to yourself. You gotta support lifestyles with them. You gotta show that you are capable of walking the path of your own. You gotta get used to being independent because either way, conflicts is going to occur every day
Yes.
and whatnot.
Yes. I really like your approach there. It sounds like you're good at listening.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're really good at exploring possibilities,
Mm-hmm.
such as what the other person wants.
Mm-hmm.
You have some flexibility, but you also know what you need.
Mm-hmm.
And those are all important elements that are going to fall into this whole concept for conflict resolution. So, yay, good job. You guys all did phenomenal. Now, remember, oh yeah, remember that you do have a test coming up. All right? So you have a test on Sunday. If you've got the 4-hour delay between tests, so don't forget that. And I will, then we're going to actually do more problem solving on conflicts with real scenarios that I'm going to give you, some complex ones. And so you'll want to watch that video to see how we apply some of what we've learned. All right? So have a good day. And remember that response to that lecture video that I showed on Thursday, you got to submit by Sunday.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, you're doing great. Thank you. All right, Hunter, Shamira, do you guys have any questions for me? Are you good? All right, I'm going to turn off the recording.